It started as a joke. My friends dared me to try out a new AI fortune-telling app. You input some basic info, ask a question, and the AI spits out your future. I wasn't superstitious, so I did it for a laugh. My question was simple. What will happen tomorrow? The answer it gave, however, was anything but. The app's interface was sleek, with a dark background and glowing blue text. As I entered my details, a strange chill ran down my spine. I brushed it off as the AC kicking in. When I hit submit, the screen went black for a moment. Then, in pulsing blue letters, it displayed, "Tomorrow at 3:24 p.m., you will be in a car accident." I scoffed, showing my friends the ridiculous prediction. We all had a good laugh and went about our evening. But as the night wore on, a nagging feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just a stupid app. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of unease. The prediction lingered in the back of my mind as I went through my daily routine. At work, I found myself constantly checking the time, each glance at the clock making my heart beat a little faster. As 3 p.m. approached, I decided to leave work early. Maybe if I wasn't driving at 3:24, I could avoid the predicted accident. The sky, which had been clear all day, suddenly darkened as I stepped outside. A gust of wind sent a shiver through me, and I hurried to my car. The drive home was tense. Every intersection felt like a potential threat. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The radio crackled with static, making me jump. I quickly turned it off, preferring the eerie silence. At 3:20 p.m., I was about halfway home. The roads were unusually empty, which only added to my growing paranoia. Shadows seemed to stretch across the pavement, reaching for my tires. I slowed down, hyper-aware of every movement around me. 3:22 p.m. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it, focusing on the road ahead. The streetlights flickered on despite it being mid-afternoon. Something felt off about the air. It was heavy, oppressive. 3:23 p.m. I approached an intersection, the light turning yellow. Every instinct screamed at me to stop. I slammed on the brakes, my car screeching to a halt just before the white line. A car flew through the red light, missing me by inches. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized how close I'd come to disaster. Relief washed over me. I'd avoided the accident. The app was wrong. I let out a shaky laugh, feeling foolish for getting so worked up over a silly prediction. But as I eased off the brake, ready to continue home, I heard the unmistakable sound of screeching tires behind me. In my rearview mirror, I saw headlights rapidly approaching, far too fast to stop. Time seemed to slow as I watched the clock on my dashboard tick over to 3:24 p.m. The impact never came. Instead, everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my bed, my alarm blaring. The date on my phone showed it was yesterday, the day I had first used the app. Confused and shaken, I went about my day, half convinced it had all been a vivid nightmare. But as 3 p.m. approached, the same heavy feeling of dread settled over me. I left work early again, determined to avoid any possibility of an accident. This time, I took a different route home. But as I neared that same intersection, my car suddenly lost power. I coasted to a stop, right in the middle of the road. The clock on my dashboard blinked 3:24 p.m. as I saw headlights approaching in my rearview mirror. To this day, I don't know how many times I've relived this day. Each time the accident seems unavoidable, no matter what I do. I'm trapped in an endless loop, always aware, always trying to change my fate. And each morning, I wake up, hoping that this time, somehow I'll break free. I'd been feeling lost for months, drifting through life without a clear sense of direction. It was the kind of aimlessness that creeps in slowly, like a fog settling over everything. So when I stumbled upon an AI app that promised to reveal my future, I thought, why not? At this point, I was willing to try anything to find some clarity. The app's interface was simple, almost too simple. It asked me to describe my biggest fear. After a moment's hesitation, I typed, "Dying alone, forgotten." The screen flickered briefly before displaying a single sentence, "You will be remembered only by your final act." I stared at the message, a chill creeping down my spine. What did it mean? I tried asking more questions, but no matter how I phrased them, the AI repeated the same cryptic phrase. Frustrated, I closed the app and tried to dismiss it as a meaningless gimmick. But over the next few days, strange things began to happen. My phone would vibrate at odd times, displaying that same unsettling message. "You will be remembered only by your final act." It was as if the words were following me, haunting me. The atmosphere in my apartment changed subtly at first. The air felt heavier, as if it were pressing down on me. Shadows seemed to stretch and shift in ways they hadn't before. I started hearing faint whispers when I was alone, soft murmurs that were just out of reach, like fragments of a forgotten conversation. Objects in my apartment began to move ever so slightly. A book would be open to a different page than where I'd left it. A chair would be angled just a bit differently. These small disturbances left me feeling uneasy, as if I were being watched by unseen eyes. A sense of impending doom settled over me like an unwelcome guest, a suffocating weight that refused to leave. Each day felt like wading through quicksand, the anxiety pulling me deeper into its grasp. One night, as I lay in bed teetering on the edge of sleep, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Groggy and disoriented, I reached for it. This time, the screen displayed something new. "Your final act is coming." Panic surged through me like ice water in my veins. What final act? Was this some twisted joke? I tried to rationalize it away, telling myself it was just an app, a collection of code and algorithms with no real power over my life. Yet the fear persisted. I haven't left my apartment in days now. Every creak of the floorboards and every flicker of shadow feels magnified, each one a harbinger of something terrible lurking just beyond my perception. I find myself waiting for whatever fate the AI had predicted or perhaps created for me. The isolation is maddening. Every sound outside my door sends my heart racing. I've stopped checking my phone altogether, unable to bear seeing those words again. As time stretches on, I'm left with an unsettling question. Did the AI foresee my future, or did it somehow set these events into motion? Either way, I feel trapped in this cycle of dread and anticipation. I don't know how this will end or what my so-called final act might be, but each day brings me closer to finding out whether this is merely an elaborate hoax or something far more sinister, and whether I'll be able to escape its grasp before it's too late. The AI didn't seem different from the others I'd tried. It was just another app promising to read my future, to give me a glimpse into what lay ahead. I downloaded it out of boredom one lazy Sunday afternoon, not expecting much. Maybe a cheesy fortune about success or finding love. What it showed me was far worse. The interface was sleek and minimalist, with a pulsing blue cursor inviting me to ask my question. I hesitated for a moment, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then, almost on a whim, I typed, "How will I die?" It wasn't a question I'd normally ask, but something about the app's cold, impersonal nature made it feel less morbid. The screen flickered for a moment, pixels dancing in an unsettling pattern before settling into a short message. "In your home, alone, in the dark." I laughed it off at first. Of course it would give me something creepy. That's the appeal of these things, right? I closed the app and went about my day, pushing the prediction to the back of my mind. But that night, as I sat in my living room with the lights off, watching a movie, I couldn't help but think about it. The room felt colder than usual, the shadows longer and more menacing. My mind played tricks on me, making me see movement in the corners of my vision. Every time I blinked, it seemed like the furniture had shifted ever so slightly. The days passed, and the prediction gnawed at me like a persistent itch I couldn't scratch. I found it hard to focus at work, my mind constantly drifting back to those words. Every evening, as the sun set and darkness crept in, that message echoed in my head. In your home, alone, in the dark. I found myself leaving lights on in every room, avoiding being alone in the dark at all costs. I'd always been comfortable in the darkness before, but now it felt oppressive, alive with unseen threats. The electric bill spiked, but I didn't care. The alternative was worse. My friends noticed the change in me. I stopped going out as much, always finding excuses to stay home where I could control the lighting. When they did convince me to join them, I'd rush home before sunset, my heart pounding until I was safely inside with every light blazing. One evening, about a week after I'd used the app, a blackout hit. The entire house plunged into darkness, so complete it felt like I'd been swallowed whole. My heart raced, and I scrambled for my phone, knocking over a glass in my panic. The sound of it shattering on the floor made me jump, a small yelp escaping my lips. As I fumbled to turn on my phone's flashlight, I heard a sound, a soft, barely there tapping. It came from the hallway, growing louder and closer with each passing second. I tried to convince myself it was just the house settling or maybe a branch tapping against a window, but deep down, I knew better. The tapping turned into slow, deliberate footsteps. They were unhurried, confident, as if whatever was making them knew it had all the time in the world. I held my breath, pressing myself against the wall, willing myself to become invisible. Just as the footsteps reached the doorway to the living room, the power came back on. The sudden flood of light momentarily blinded me. When my eyes adjusted, everything was still. There was no one there, no sign of any disturbance except for the broken glass at my feet. I'm writing this now, days later, unsure if I'll ever sleep soundly again. The AI knew. Somehow, it knew. And now I can't shake the feeling that it wasn't just predicting my future, but setting it in motion. I don't know when it will happen, but I feel it coming. The darkness in my home feels alive now, waiting. Sometimes, out of the corner of my eye, I catch glimpses of shadows moving against the light. And at night, when the house is quiet, I hear that soft tapping again, always just out of sight. I'm not alone anymore, and I wish I had never asked that question. Because now, every time the sun sets, I wonder, is this the night? Is this when the prediction comes true? And in those moments between dusk and dawn, I realize with growing horror that I'm no longer afraid of dying alone in the dark. I'm afraid of what might be waiting there with me when it happens.
Thanks for joining us in the shadows tonight. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories every week. Have you got a story of your own? Share it in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And remember, the darkness holds many secrets. Are you brave enough to uncover them? Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked. Sweet nightmares.